in the future. Right now, the governor has said this is fine, but state law requires a board or a commission like you are to pass a resolution authorizing electronic meetings. And so we can have some electronic meetings in the future. Oh, now that we've got our fourth, we can go ahead and do that resolution and just go through the agenda as normal.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody. So for item 1, is there a resolution I need to read, or how do we go about that resolution? Sorry, Gary.
Can you bring up that language? I know that Crystal has the language for you. There we go.
Okay. Okay. So item 1 is a resolution to allow electronic meetings. I'll go ahead and read it.
Yeah.
Okay. Electronic meetings. In order to satisfy Utah Code Annotated 52-4-207, Electronic Communications Board of...
It should be TMAC.
Yeah.
Transportation. It's similar language we're using with all of our commissions.
Okay. Yeah.
Transportation and Mobility Advisory Committee members may participate in meetings of the board by electronic communication if the required technology is available and the meeting is legally noticed in accordance with the Utah state law. The TMAC must provide space and facilities at a location where the public may attend, monitor, and participate in the open portions of the meetings as specified in UCA 52-4-207. So do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
I do. I motion this resolution to be accepted.
Thanks, Dr. Saito. I'll go ahead and second it. And then should we go by name to make sure?
Yeah, let's do a roll call vote.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote. So Mitsu Saito?
TMAC.
Or aye or nay to approve.
Oh, that's what it is.
Dr. Saito?
Aye.
Okay, Joy McMurray?
Aye.
And David Arnold?
Approve.
And myself, Clancy Black, aye. So unanimous.
Okay, great.
And we'll do that unanimous, and implied in that motion is that we make those corrections to it to put in the TMAC.
Yeah.
Right.
And we'll do that, and that will now be a part of your bylaws. So in the future, we can now hold electronic meetings pursuant to state law.
Oh,
Excellent.
I see.
Okay. Can we get that agenda back up now? Please.
Yep. Screen sharing.
All right. Thanks, Crystal, or whoever's running that. Robert.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, so we'll move on to item 2, future TMAC topics, which we continued from our last meeting.
Okay, so
yeah, go ahead, Robert. Thanks.
I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up again. So this is the Transportation and Mobility Advisory Committee page on the city's website. And here, down in the body of this, it talks about the duties of the TMAC. And I just wanted to go over these really quick. Monitor the status of the, make recommendations for amendments to the city vision document, general plan, transportation master plan, major and local streets plans, basically to make advisory recommendations to the city council. recommend adoption and alteration of rules and regulations, things like that that pertain to transportation and mobility, and then review different issues that come up that like land use policy, balancing interests and needs of private vehicles, public transportation, bicycle, pedestrians. And then y'all can read the rest of them, but basically the things that you've been doing, you were very, very helpful and influential in specifically the transportation master plan, and your recommendation is being again considered by the city council today in a meeting that's going on. And so we've kind of gone through those processes, and then today we wanted to just brainstorm a little bit more about some things that you might want to look at doing in the future. If there are any things that you want us to prepare to bring to you, or that you'd like to have additional insights on or review a little bit, we wanted to get your input on that. So.
Thanks. Could you go back to that web page real quick, Robert? I want to pull it up on my screen so I can refer to it while we talk, if that's okay.
The URL is here.
Thanks. Give me a second. Mayor's office, boards and commissions. Okay, I'm there. Thanks for doing that. We can go back to your notes now.
No problem. So we kind of talked about this at the very end of our last meeting, and so just wanted to get any of your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So what does everyone think I guess one thing I want to start with, we kind of, I think, finished our part of the transportation master plan, and I haven't heard of anything the council has asked us to look at or provide further. Has staff been told anything or heard anything that we could continue to do to help with the transportation master plan? Or do you have an update for that?
So today, the council is actually having the transportation master plan review in their work meeting, which is going on right now. And then this afternoon or this evening in their regular meeting, they're going to be talking about it again, possibly adopting that. And so then that will kind of become effective for, guiding the transportation principles of Provo City. One thing that is kind of on our horizon now is an substantive update to our general plan. The transportation master plan is actually a part of our general plan. And the way it really should work is that the general plan has the guiding principles and ideals for the city in land use, in economics, and many different things, but also as for transportation. And so we'll be hopefully relying a lot on TMAC to help us develop those goals and policies for transportation in the general plan process. So that's something that you guys can look forward to start thinking about holistically, maybe not just a project list of things that you'd like to see done in the city, but just how transportation for Provo City would be ideal. What are some things that we should be working on and thinking about, and some guiding principles that should guide those decisions.
Okay. So go ahead.
Robert.
Maybe I'll just put that on here, like update to the general plan.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Robert, is this the second time it's going to council for them hearing it, isn't it?
This is the second time it's going to council.
Yeah.
And I watched the video of when the transportation master plan came before the council the first time. Do you want to give a summary, Robert, of their concerns since you were presenting, or do you want me to summarize what I heard? I think it would be helpful for the TMAC to be aware of the council's reaction to the transportation master plan that was sent to them.
Yeah, go ahead, Joy. You're welcome to share your thoughts.
Yeah, and I can add to that, Joy, after you share your thoughts, because I was
Okay.
there as well. So I think that would be helpful.
I would say first that council seemed very appreciative of all of the work that has gone into it from TMAC and Planning Commission, and of course our wonderful city staff. I did hear they had many members of the community express concern to them over the Part B of the 820 North expansion between 5th West and how far did that go out?
To Geneva.
To Geneva, thank you. Many community members from that neighborhood that were concerned about that aspect of the plan, and they wanted to see that removed. More generally, I was hearing from the council members a desire to see a transportation master plan, and maybe this will feed into our discussion of the general plan, that wasn't just talking about expanding roads for more car travel, but really wanted to look carefully at other methods of transportation for economic reasons, for environmental reasons, for many reasons, to really say, how can Provo be a leader in encouraging other forms of transportation? And they were tempted to overhaul the whole transportation master plan. I don't know if they're going to do that. I don't know if that happened. I'm sure Robert and others have had many discussions with them over the last month. I'm curious how those are going. But it definitely sounded like almost a philosophical shift from what had been presented in the transportation master plan, was my interpretation of that. Maybe that's too strong of a term. And maybe it was only some members of council, not the whole council, who felt that way. But that was a very interesting takeaway for me, that they are very serious about saying, let's look at other options besides just responding to the traffic numbers that we're seeing. Robert or Clancy, do you want to add to that or amend that at all?
Yeah, I'll add my thoughts. I think you're exactly right. They liked what they saw in general. 820 North. It's about 2 hours of comments on that in the meeting.
Yeah.
With regard to your kind of overhaul discussion, if I could have added my 2 cents during their discussion, or my analysis of it, is I think the active transportation chapter that was added is a huge step forward.
Yes.
But I think maybe what people were feeling is that active transportation piece, it's in that chapter, but it hasn't permeated the whole document yet. Mm-hmm. So it's a huge step to get it in there, and maybe next time, or this time, if they choose to, will change a lot more throughout the whole document to work together a little more with the active transportation. So that was kind of my thought.
So could I ask a question on that? Because I wasn't there for the meeting. TMAC, we worked really hard on the complete streets policy. Uh-huh. And the city council kind of ripped us apart. So Gary, has something changed on the city council?
It would help if I could learn to unmute my microphone before I get into a big, long explanation. So,
I mean, for those of you that aren't committee members, I mean, we were essentially vilified by some of the council members, outstanding our bounds, various things. So, is the council really changed, and are they more interested now in complete streets and active transportation?
I think so. I think the major thing that we saw is honestly an election.
Yeah.
And with every time we have an election of the council, every 2 years, what happens is a new composition of players come on board. And I think what we saw is we had an election where we have 4 new council members, and the dynamics have just changed. And I think this current council that we have now is very interested in looking at complete streets, very interested in re-examining the premise upon which our transportation planning and system is based here going forward into the future. And so I think with the general plan update, what I'm hearing from council members is that they would like to go back and re-examine things. Not to say that they intend to have a complete overhaul and change everything, but that we ought to intentionally make decisions of our policy so that the next time we do the transportation master plan, which informs the types of capital projects we have in the city, we're doing it through the lens or the paradigm of how we want our guiding principles of transportation to be in the city. So I think that is a major shift from where we were before when we had that joint meeting of TMAC and the Municipal Council a couple of years ago now, or a year and a half ago.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, Clancy, for that digression.
No, thanks, David. I pointed out to the council after the meeting, just sent them a quick email. There is a section that we all brought up in one of our meetings and was added that talks about context sensitive design and solutions. And it's kind of that the hope was it would be kind of that core discussion of saying like, hey, we have to consider all these things, but it's just a few paragraphs. It's not, like I said a minute ago, it doesn't permeate the whole document yet. So that's kind of my take on it, but it is good to hear that update. I'm glad you brought that up, David, because most of us weren't part of that. Regarding future TMAC topics and looking at our duties here, one thing that has been on my mind is the unfunded active transportation projects that are in the master plan. We have those big lists of active transportation projects, and some of them are associated with roadway projects, and so they will therefore be funded and built with those roadway projects. But most of them are not funded. They're just a wish list. I think, and in our resolution or in our recommendation to the council, we recommended that they look to pursue funding for those projects. But I feel like we could do more. I mean, currently we've handed them this big list of, hey, here's a bunch of unfunded needs. We think the council should find money to fund these. But I feel like one thing we could discuss is prioritizing those so that if or when they try to get funding or adjust budgets, they know what they should focus on. Otherwise, it's a list of 40 projects and it could either be too overwhelming to even try and tackle it, or it'll just be, whoever happens to have heard from a neighbor that day that they want this project done. I think we could maybe help to prioritize those to guide any decisions they might make. And I don't think if we discuss that, I don't think it'd be changing the plan. It'd be simply providing a recommendation on priority for those projects. So that's been on my mind. Anyone have any thoughts?
The one that's been on my mind is I don't know why I guess just because downtown is kind of the heart of our city. It's the part of the town that can bring us all together. And so our conversations when we were talking about the transportation master plan of trying to lower the speed to deal with the entrances, the gates, whatever the solution is, I'd really like to continue that dialogue about Center Street and trying to shift that traffic from Center Street up to wherever it's supposed to go, first north, second north. I can't remember where it's supposed to go. But I'd like to add that to the agenda in the future and see what we can do to reduce that traffic on Center Street. Not kill the Center Street business as the group that, the downtown representative that came in. I'm not interested in that, but trying to just reduce the speed of the traffic or the amount of through traffic that's not staying there in part of the downtown, trying to reduce that. So that's a topic that I'd be interested in.
Yeah, that was on my list also, Center Street. So I concur with David, especially speed reduction. And also, even if you don't reduce the volume, I think we have a way to help reduce the speed on the stretch if we can sort of create a kind of atmosphere where people, in a way, don't want to rush through that, whatever, about 5 blocks. It's not the long distance anyway. So at this moment, when you come to the 500 West, and you have a little marker says Provo downtown, such and such, we can have a little bit bigger one, and also provide, tell, in a way, sign or something to tell the driver that this is really 50 miles per hour stretch, and then it'll be, speed enforcement is there by camera or whatever. Then we might be able to kind of let the drivers think that, yeah, this is important, this is short stretch, I can follow the guidance and then go there at 50 miles per hour, at least less than 20 miles per hour. So I think we can still do it, just like Clancy said before, tell them there should be a big sign at the gate of east and west to tell the driver that this is the place that dedicated for that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. On that, I'm going to dive into that a little more. There's going to be major construction on that corner with the new city center.
Yeah,
that's true.
Center and the 500 West, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those little buildings are gone. The
right
hamburger shop or whatever.
The tire store in Rocky
Yeah.
Mountain.
So what are they going to build there that now it's empty at that corner?
The new city center.
Huh? What is it?
The new city center building's going to be there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So anyway, I bring that up because if there's going to be major construction there soon, it seems like that is an opportunity to
add extra thing there.
Something that could help with this sort of gateway treatment.
I agree. And it would be nice if we could give some input on that.
Yeah, and that's a little, the city center construction is outside of our purview, but the transportation issue is. So I don't know what we would need to do or who we would talk to make sure that consideration is given to that. Robert or Gary, any thoughts? I just wouldn't want us to miss an opportunity if they're going to be cutting roads and moving dirt, pushing dirt anyway.
So I have seen the plans, the preliminary plans for the city center that they're actually going to be on the Planning Commission agenda next week.
Okay.
So you're welcome to tune into that and provide any comments that you'd like to. I know that on that corner, on that 5th West Center Street corner, they are providing in their plans a rendering of a much larger, kind of welcome to Provo type of signage monument. And then the building itself, will be on that corner, kind of indicating the start of downtown.
Yeah. I remember the open house, the building is massed heavily onto that corner, which all by itself, that does a lot to remind people that, oh, I'm entering a different place. I need to slow down, rather than what's currently there is a parking lot, a small parking lot, but a parking lot. So that's good. So yeah, outside of that specific corner discussion, I think continuing the Center Street discussion is definitely a excellent future topic for us.
Have I captured that okay in number 3?
Yes,
I think so.
I like
Or
it.
sorry, Joy.
No, yes, I like what Robert wrote.
I want to just read Austin Taylor's comment because I think you already covered this, Dr. Saito, but just so it's stated, the downtown businesses suggestion was primarily to slow vehicles down to make it more comfortable for pedestrians, and that will naturally push traffic to other roads. So I think you covered that, Dr. Saito and David, what you said, but just wanted to make sure that was stated.
I really like
go ahead, Joy.
items 1, 2, 3. I like what we've written so far. I would add another one, especially based on listening to the council's discussion about the transportation master plan, and that's EastWest Mobility. I'd like to take a much closer look at that. And if we've already looked at that, that will help us have the information we need later to make wise decisions about that 800 North corridor, and also to connect Provo in important ways. Socially, economically, that east-west divide is not a great thing, and I would love to say what are our options, and then we'll have better information to help council make those decisions.
Yeah, I agree. And an east-west topic that is newer is that was brought up to us a week before we finished the master plan and was brought up in the council meeting is 900 South and 600 South. We didn't discuss those much at all, but those were brought up in the meeting. So I think we should make sure to include those when we do have that discussion. Pretty much everything from 800 North down to 900 South.
And many citizens who were concerned about that 800 North expansion were proposing alternate routes and possibilities for that east-west mobility. And I'd like to take a hard look at those suggestions and see, are those viable? Can we integrate those in some other way? I'd really like to take those suggestions seriously and see what we can come up with.
Both 800 and 500 North ends at 700 East. Doesn't go to 900 East. That's the interesting part. So it's difficult to get to the east side kind of major arterial through 800 and 500. 500. Oh, yeah, 500 North. So.
And 500 North, there is the plan, and I don't know if it's still there in the current transportation master plan that we looked at to bump it through all the way to 9th East. That is one of the capital improvement projects listed.
Yeah,
there's an apartment there.
That's in phase 1, unless it's changed in the last month.
Yeah, exactly. That was in phase 1, so that should be happening.
I don't know if Dave or Shane is on here. I'd heard that the colony was that student housing complex was aware of the project and cooperating, but I don't know if there's been an update on that.
Well, I see that Dave Graves and Shane Winters and David Day are all on. Do you all have any comments on that?
Yeah, Clancy, I can maybe give just a little update. There's been some very preliminary discussions with the owner of the colony. They've indicated that they're considering some possible, redo with their development. And so we've had the discussion with them that we would like to, sit down and discuss what the options may be for extending 500 North through that area to connect to 900 East. But it's kind of still in the very preliminary stages.
Thank you.
Good. That's your thanks for the update, David. Yeah, I think that's it's not a very long connection, but I think that's a critical connection that could make a significant difference for East-West.
Yeah, well, even the 800 North, at this moment, it's staggered intersection there to get to. That's not a good design.
Yeah.
First of all. And I was wondering about the railroad, I'm kind of jumping, but the railroad bridge on 200 West or 500 West. What is going on now? Do you know?
With the railroad bridge,
Yeah, to cross the road.
well, there hasn't been any look, of extending either of those roads right now, and that may be something that, in the discussions that you're having, that we want to look at a little closer. Of, do we want to try to extend those out to Geneva Road? Understanding that we do have the railroad tracks and I-15 as major obstacles to be able to cross. And, both of those roadways extend to Independence Avenue right now.
Right.
But getting them to Geneva Road would be pretty costly, but it's certainly something that could be looked at.
Saito, are you talking about the ones in Southern Provo, the second and
Yeah,
third?
well, that. Yeah, David talked about it. So that's one bridge. But what I was thinking about was the bridge over the track, the south side, near the
So the
Provo
one by
station.
the one by
station.
Provo. Are they still
Front
considering
runner.
building a pedestrian bridge at
200?
Yes.
200?
Yes, that we've actually signed the interlocal agreement with UTA to proceed forward with design. So that is a UTA project, but we're working closely with them, and so I think over the next probably 3 to 6 months, we should start seeing some design for that bridge.
Oh, that's nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's
So
great.
will it be on, is it going to be on Second or First?
It'll be on First West.
Okay, First West.
Oh, First West. Okay.
And trying to make that a pedestrian friendly street? Is that the idea?
That's correct.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Very nice. Yeah.
We will need to follow up with you also. We have the bridge studies for Second West, grade separating study that we're conducting right now for Fifth West and also Second West.
And this is for vehicles, right?
That is, well, it's for vehicles and pedestrians.
Okay.
We're looking at that as well. Where they still sit is right now we've just pretty good at analyzing the existing conditions. We feel good with what has been studied, so we have a good understanding of what's there. I think that we're moving forward kind of with the next phase on if it's feasible, from a vehicle pedestrian standpoint and what that looks like. I think that's what we'll have to follow up with you as we get closer to that point. We'd like to come to TMAC and then give you a presentation on that as well.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
TMAC members, do you want me to add grade separated railroad crossings as a topic?
Yeah.
So
to make sure we're clear, those are two separate efforts, right? One is the grade separated ped crossing at 100 West. The other is grade separated road
for vehicle and people
at 200 and or 500. Is that right, Shane?
Right.
Correct.
Okay. So yeah, kind of the same discussion, but I just want to make sure I knew they were separate projects. Okay.
And so I have one thing that just so you're aware on the transportation, one of the things that we will be proposing to the council today is that did get brought up, EastWest Mobility and some of the implications with that. One of the things that we will be doing and what we've heard from, not the council, from TMAC and some of, residents, community, we understand and we're taking those things as far as these suggestions, we're talking 5th North, 6 South, 820 North, those kind of, what we're going to provide in the master plan is we're going to add additional section that says, okay, what we've learned and what we understand, we're going to go ahead and suggest all these things are almost your list there. We're going to recommend that we do additional studies on those things, because a lot of it we need to still really look at the travel demand model and see what, if by providing those connections, what happens. So we are proposing that to the council to show that in the master plan as future or studies that we can do between now and maybe the next master plan update.
Okay. I like that idea, because they are in phase 2, but we want to make sure we look at them the right way. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
So what we've done is we've created kind of a list, in a table list of all those things and what we've heard, what we need to look at.
Mm-hmm.
The other topic, I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on it because I think there's good plans on it, but I wouldn't mind reviewing just where Lakeview Parkway is at along its entire corridor in terms of property acquisition, construction timelines, funding. There's a lot of good work. I think you could probably satisfy me in probably 15 minutes of discussion, but just to be brought up to speed on that overall project. That's a long-term project and be nice to see where it's at.
Could we all?
Oh, sorry, Clancy.
I was going to go to a next topic, Joyce, so you can go ahead.
No, I would just add in that I think those probably happen anyway, but if we could stay updated on whatever is happening with the freeway corridor study and a possible interchange in Provo. Shane, you usually keep us updated on that, but I'm just saying going forward, I want to make sure we stay up to date on what's happening there.
I think you guys will be one of the first to know when UDOT starts moving forward with that. You will be like one of the major stakeholders as far as when we start. That is when UDOT really kicks that up into the next phase. They've completed again the first phase, which is gathering all the existing conditions, getting the traffic demand model so that it's representative of the current conditions. They're almost finishing or getting to that point where they're confident in that model and finishing that up. Discussion that I had a week or two ago with the state is they're still about a few months out to really kicking up that next phase. And what they'll be looking at doing is defining the purpose and need. So they'll be kicking into that environmental document heavily. What I've been told is about 2 months, and still really start defining what the purpose and need of the project is.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's what I was going to add, Joy. So you got me.
Great. I like it. I love it when you have good ideas.
I want to add one more stuff. I was looking at the Central Corridor Transit Study file that Kristen sent to me. So I'm interested in this. I should say I want to be informed about the progress of this, like a bus rapid transit, whatever. What they're trying to decide what kind of alternative would be the best, connecting Provo all the way through to Lehigh City.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is a study going on that I believe they're calling it the Central Corridor Study.
Yeah, interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, if that's what you're asking about,
yeah,
I think probably get UTA to come give an update on where they're at.
Yeah, if they're going to come, I'd also be interested in the ridership on the UTX or whatever it is.
UVX.
UVX, there we go, the UVX.
Uh-huh.
And in particular, if they had any stop information, how many people are coming downtown Provo at those stops? How many are going? Is it the mix? Anyway, where Zupa's is, and anyway, on State Street, or I mean on University Parkway, that shopping center. If I could get I'd be interested in how many people are getting on and off on the different spots.
Yeah.
I mean, we anticipated that most of the people would be going to or from the universities.
Right.
I'd be interested in how many people are going to the retail spots along the UVX on the stop. So I'd be interested in any information they have on that, because that can inform how hard we lobby for future bus transit. You know, if we can look at what it's doing to our community in terms of our retail and our major employers and that mobility along that corridor, I mean, that can inform how hard we push for more of these in our community. So I'm really interested in what's happening there.
I agree. Could we add a note to that, Robert, about funding? If or when they're able and willing to come present on that, I'd love to know how that federal grant that has made UVX free, how they think they've impacted ridership, and if they've looked at what they'll do when that grant expires. I think free rides is a huge thing there, and I'm curious what they've seen or thought about on that.
This may be implied in a number of the items that have been identified for future discussion. But it seems to me that one of the biggest political issues along the Wasatch Front is clean air. And you can't talk about clean air without talking about transportation. A lot of what we've been talking about here is related to alternative transportation.
Jim? Can you hear me, Jim? Could you lean forward a little? I can't hear you very well.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
That is a little better. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I guess what I'm suggesting is that maybe a way of framing some of the what we'll call more tactical issues is in terms of a general discussion of how can Provo and its transportation planning contribute to better air quality in Utah County. And if we frame a discussion on those along in that framework, then maybe there is to tackle a number of these in a more coordinated way. Just a thought.
I like that, Jim. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think that should be a huge point of discussion when the general plan discussion begins, even before that, but especially with the general plan. On the general plan item, Robert, on our TMAC duties, it specifically mentions the Vision 2030 document. Could you talk to us about that for a minute? Is that something that, it says recommendations for amendments to that plan? Is that something that we could or should update now before the general plan begins? Or what's the dynamic between that Vision 2030 document and the general plan?
So my understanding is that the Vision 2030 document was kind of a very aspirational planning exercise, just to get people thinking about really lofty goals and ideals as part of that planning process, not necessarily as part of the general plan, although it did get many of those goals and policies got incorporated into the most recent update to the general plan. What we envision for this new update to the general plan is just a real substantive update to examine what the goals for the city should be, and it kind of taking all of that information that we've gathered over the years through the previous general plans, Vision 2030, all of that and really refining it into a much thinner, much more usable and informative document that can then help guide all of the ancillary plans that we do, like the transportation plan, the parks master plan, all of those types of things. So personally, I wouldn't worry too much about the 2030 plan. I would focus on you know, just the process as we go along in refining the new general plan.
Another topic, I don't, it's not urgent, but if we could discuss it in the next year, and that would be safety. There was a lot of information done by our consultant on the transportation master plan on the safety of our streets, both from a pedestrian and a driver point of view. I'd like to, maybe if we could just focus on those spots and see if we want to do anything about them. You know, if we want to, you know, create some interest of, you know, what projects do we want to do? I mean, there's always the kind of the hot spots have always been all of the streets that are south of BYU's campus, all the students crossing 8th and 7th North. That's always, you know, it comes up all the time, of the conflicts between the cars and the pedestrians there, all those students. I'm trying to think, there's another, well, I guess Cougar Boulevard has largely been addressed. We'll see if the statistics match the redesign of the road, right? If we have fewer accidents there. But I just, in general, I'd like to look at the safety of our streets, the accident rates, the pedestrian accident rates. And I think a lot of the information was collected by our consultant. I just like to review it as a group and see what we want to do about it.
No, that sounds good. With regard to the boulevard formerly known as Bulldog, I've been on it many times with my kids, and it is awesome. I love it. It is.
Yeah, and once the tree comes and the leaves and stuff, it's prettier.
Oh yeah, it'll be prettier with once there's some greenery, but it's
right,
been awesome. One other thing, again, I'm just looking at these responsibilities. It talks about serve as a coordinating body for organizations interested in transportation and mobility issues. I wonder if that's something, the second to last bullet there. I wonder if that's something we could do a little more proactively. Like No Bike Walk Provo has a lot of members that come to our meetings often, but I wonder if it'd be more efficient to invite them, you know, a few times a year to come with and talk to us about their priorities and interests. I don't know of other organizations, but if anyone does, I think we could and should do the same for them, rather than single members coming with comments. Not that needs to stop, but having them, officially inviting them to come and spend 15 minutes talking about their interests and needs and priorities. I don't know if there's...
I second that, Clancy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Troy.
Good idea.
I don't know if there's anyone that talks about mobility from a mobility as in ability perspective, but if there's any groups that talk about that, I'd love to hear their input as well. Any other items we want to add to this list?
I've been wondering about the Plumtree shopping area development, because that once that's built, there'll be a lot of traffic, I guess, in that area. Of course, we have one extra intersection there that will give access to that area. So I'm wondering what kind of stage are they in? Does the city engineers, David, do you know?
That's the
Yeah.
mix, yeah.
I don't know, Dave may have better information than I do on that, but they've been working with our utilities division.
I see.
They changed some of that project from what was office and commercial to a more residential type use. And so they've kind of been working through some of those issues. But David, do you have any other update on that?
No, we've just been waiting to see what they're going to do. They've kind of been at a standstill for quite a while now.
Okay.
Okay.
Nancy,
Any other? Or go
I
ahead,
have
Joy.
one more, kind of related to number one, the update to the general plan. As I mentioned earlier, I feel like there's been a lot of discussion throughout Provo and on the council and in our committee lately about what should Provo's approach to transportation and mobility issues be, with the various conflicting interests. And maybe that's always part of this discussion, but I wonder if it would be worth our time or not to kind of hear some of the latest thought and approach from planners or from engineers about what is the most up-to-date thinking on the best ways for city to approach transportation. I know Austin invited us to the Strong Towns. There's been a lot of people in Provo talking about that movement. I just don't know, since I am not in the industry myself, I'm on the committee as a normal citizen, essentially. Would it be worth our time to hear what are some of the latest approaches to transportation and mobility issues? I don't know. But if we're overhauling the general plan and the council is saying, let's not just have a car-centric approach or just an engineering approach, let's look at some other planning strategies. I'm wondering if we need to take some time to talk about those.
I really like that. I really like that, Joy, a lot. It goes to the point earlier that there may be some larger issues that we could wrestle with and tackle that would inform how we deal with some of the more tactical issues that we have on our list right now. And I think alternative forms of transportation certainly go hand in hand with potential clean air improvements. And also goes to what I understand from this conversation today is the council's concern that we are, that we be more creative in our thinking about how we want to be in the future. Do we want to be a car municipality, or do we want to encourage other kinds of transportation? I think that could be a very useful conversation for us to have.
Thank you, Robert, for interpreting what I was trying to say in how you type number 14. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, Jim and Joy. Thanks.
To add that, could we get an update on where the electric scooter program is at and where bike rideshare might be going? Because I haven't heard anything about that for a while. That'd be a good topic. I'd be very interested in that. It's kind of like that last few blocks or whatever kind of thing.
The first mile, last mile.
Yeah, first mile, last.
First mile, last mile, whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of extends how far people are willing to walk if you give them a scooter or a bike.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you need any quick updates on that, I can tell you everything.
Okay.
But whenever you want to.
I think that would be worth scheduling time and actually talking about is what I'm suggesting, so that you could actually bring us up to speed on the plans and what the possibilities are and how we could use that to really get more out of our mass transit.
Robert, on number 12, could you do 2 sub bullets there? One for Bike Walk Provo, because I know they'll be interested. And then I just barely thought also we could possibly talk to the school district and have their transportation coordinator that works with like the safe routes to school plans. I think that would be informative for us and helpful, because that, I mean, children walking to school is a major transportation user, and we need to, I think we could do better at being aware of how the school district manages that and how we could work with them on that. I haven't thought of any other groups, but
I think it's useful when the Downtown Alliance comes in at least once a year or something and talks to us about what they think's happening downtown.
And then, does BYU have a transportation coordinator? I feel like they do now, but I don't know.
There's a bike committee there.
Yeah,
That's
they're
what I know.
called Bike Walk Provo
Bike
now.
walk.
No,
Yeah.
no, BYU
I
has
see.
its own bike
Unless I'm
committee
mistaken.
it's a part of
There's two
BYU.
committees.
It's faculty and staff and students.
Right.
And then they also have a space management division, and both of those combine. And then there's a traffic and parking committee. So all those three control transportation on BYU campus.
My connection's struggling, so I'm dropping my video.
I suppose I'd also, another thing I'd be interested in is the new high school. You know, like a year later or 2 years later, what impact has it had? What are, you know, what's plans? That's a topic we could have, is just the impact of the high school on the traffic over in that part of town and what we can do. Because my guess is we probably have some new safety issues that will pop up over there for pedestrian. You know, accidents are probably going to start popping up over there. Accident rates. I don't know if it's been long enough for us to see where the hot spots might be, but I'd be interested in looking at that area and the impact on the community, on the neighborhood over there. And
That's good. Any other topics you want to add to this list? Okay. Let's go ahead and move to item 3 now then. 2020 State of the State address relating to transportation.
Right. So in January 30th, the governor just his state address, and a lot of this relates to what we were talking about earlier in this meeting. Was talking about how we're having population growth happening that increases our pollution and crowding to the cities, etc. One thing I really liked, and this I'm going to highlight it, is he says we need to boldly reimagine our roads to safely accommodate cars, mass transit, bikes, pedestrians, and even those scooters. Technically,
Even those. Yeah.
Those scooters.
That didn't make the cut for the text. We should make community transit as easy as community cars. Then he says that, and he's budgeting $34 million for a front runner so that we can run trains every 15 minutes instead of every half an hour, etc. Try and make things more attractive. But I think it's really good to think about, as we do think about transportation, is he used the word boldly reimagine. Think outside the box. I think it's really good for us to think, as we're thinking about all these things on our list, that we need to think not what we've been doing maybe for 20 years. Maybe we should try something else and see how it is. Look at other cities that have done things that are more innovative, perhaps. Look at the case studies and analyze that a little bit and see what worked for them, what didn't. And maybe we can garner some information and some insights on doing things different than what always has been. Just because the status quo has been doesn't mean it shouldn't be changed, perhaps. And so I think we should really take to TMAC that statement from the governor exactly, and try and incorporate this into what we're trying to accomplish here at Provo City. That's mostly what I had.
Yeah, I really like that. Thanks for that, Javin. I think that fits with a lot of those items on our lists.
Yeah.
So please remind us of this when we bring those up in the future, in future meetings, because this is good.
Definitely.
All right, item 4, Central Corridor Transit Study presentation. Who's got that item? Austin.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So the UTA came to the city council 2 weeks ago and talked about they want to do a new line of transit from Provo to Lehigh. After the success of UVX, a lot of mayors in the area said, we want something like this. And just so you know, the stats on UVX, they hit a peak of about 16,000 boardings per day.
Can you say that again? I didn't hear that.
How many?
16,000 boardings per day.
15,000.
Yeah, so that was the peak.
Whoa.
That was during the school year.
Oh.
Now they're way down. So
Yeah, of course, with COVID.
Yeah, but the projected peak rates weren't, I mean, that's higher than the projected rates.
Yeah, they were shooting for, I think they said around 10,000.
Yeah, it was around 10,000 they were shooting for.
Yeah, so it's gotten a lot more. And when I've ridden it recently, like within the past 2 weeks, it's been pretty empty because transit's not that safe of a thing to ride right now. Even transit ridership is way down, right? So
plus we don't have students anyway. I mean,
no. Yeah. And when they've done studies on the bus, they ask people, why are you riding this? Where are you from? They find that 85% of the riders are either UVU or BYU students, faculty, or staff. And so I think someone was asking a question before, how's ridership going to be once it's not free for everybody anymore? The vast majority of the riders will still get it for free through their schools.
Yeah, university, right?
And both of them have committed to 10-year contracts paying for these people to ride. So even when the 3-year contract for everyone to ride for free goes down, they will at least have 85% of the riders still getting it for free. And then there's people like me. I pay for a UTA pass. I just have the tap swipe card when I go do personal trips. I'll still ride it, and there's a lot of people who will still ride it as well.
Thanks for that update, Austin. I really like it.
So with the success of UVX, they want to replicate this. They want to go from Provo to Lehigh. There's this study that they're doing right now. They're hoping by September to decide what type, like what vehicle they're going to use and what alignment, which route they're going to take. They shared this slide at the city council meeting. I thought it was really useful information when they're comparing the types of transit. They don't want to do just the normal bus. If you guys are familiar with bus 850, bus 850 goes from the Provo Central Station to the Lehigh Frontrunner Station. So it's basically the same route that we're talking about. That bus comes, I believe at fastest, it's every 15 minutes, but it doesn't carry the number of people that a UVX style bus can, or it can carry about twice as many people. So these are the different vehicles that they're looking at for it. And you can see that bus rapid transit it's the cheapest. It's a significant amount. I mean, it's only 1 to 15 million per mile. When you compare with light rail at 60 to 90 million per mile. The downside to it is that it can't carry as many people per vehicle as like a light rail or a commuter rail can. So these are the options that they're weighing right now. And
I do, Austin, if I could, on that people per vehicle though, with a bus, they do have a lot more flexibility to adjust the schedule and add vehicles, reduce headways, stuff like that. So
yeah, they could just run more buses. Yep. And so this is the route. This is the area that they're looking at. They haven't picked a route yet. People are saying they're just going to copy the 850 route. They're just going to go on State Street most of the way. That hasn't been decided yet. So they're asking for public input on the website. It's Central Utah Corridor Transit Study. What you can do is you can go on here, and they have in the comments section, they have a map, and a lot of people have clicked on the map and filled out their comments on what they think, what kind of vehicle it should use, what kind of route it should go on. A lot of people so far are suggesting that they take the 850, which is one of their most successful buses on State Street, and make that BRT style. So basically double the frequency and have a bigger bus. And they think that would work pretty well, but that's yet to be decided still.
Awesome.
So that's the update on it.
Does part of the cost of that include creating an actual lane specifically for the buses? I mean, because otherwise you could enhance stations, but is that part of the cost?
The 1 to 15 million per mile.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're enhancing the station, I don't know if it would cost that much, but if you're actually taking out a specific section or a lane, that would incur some cost, perhaps. I don't know, but just that's my question.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that it's included. They're talking about right here in this square that a BRT almost always gets exclusive right of way, right? The bus gets its own lane. That's how BRT is done. And so I'm assuming they're including that in the cost here.
Austin, with those numbers you gave us earlier, did you say 15,000 or 16,000?
16.
And is that's just Provo Orem, like Orem front runner to Provo front runner, right? Just those two cities?
UVX bus line, which goes from Provo to Orem.
Yeah, okay,
So
thank you.
I don't know if I saw a presentation from UTA. I don't know if it was here, or if it was a council meeting, but that one bus line, UVX, actually doubled bus ridership in the county.
Wow.
Oh,
which is amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I think a big thing is just the frequency of it. You know, you don't have to plan.
Oh, yeah.
You just show up at the stop and it comes.
Yeah, that's really nice. Excellent. Anything else, Austin, or is that what you wanted to cover?
That's I do want to share a statistic that the MAG shared at an active transportation committee meeting in Salt Lake City. So if you've noticed, a lot more people are outside walking and biking right now. And MAG's trail counters on the, what's the trail? The Murdoch Canal Trail. If you've ridden that or walked that recently, you've probably seen how crowded it is. They got some data on it, and it's up 80% compared to this time last year. And so people are just out having fun on trails, walking and biking. It's really nice.
I biked it last week with my family and it was really crowded. Yeah.
You got to keep your 6 feet.
That's what we were worried about. It was a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. And even in some places, it gets so crowded that they're actually shutting down streets for cars and saying, you know, this street, we're only going to allow people walking and biking. I don't know. I don't think Provo is that it's necessary to do that here because we're not as dense as like a San Francisco or Portland where they're doing it. But other places are.
Yeah, UDOT traffic data is reporting on state highways traffic's down 40 to 60% depending on the road. Pretty unreal. All right, well, I think that that finishes our agenda. Is there anything else we need to discuss or talk about? All right.
I think it's about.
Okay, so Robert, for our agenda for our next meeting, do we need to like pick the item we want to focus on next meeting, or will staff kind of look through that and see what happens tonight with the council and then decide?
I would probably plan on some items regarding the general plan update, and then maybe I'll send you some suggestions and you can what you'd like to put on there.
Okay.
Does the Center Street discussion need to move up in priority because of the timing issues? Or just flow whenever it comes? It sounds like, Clancy, you were suggesting there was a specific window when that interchange is being, or the intersection is being redone anyway, that maybe we should seize this opportunity to give input there.
Yeah, my thought was if we're doing construction there, let's make sure to think about that. It sounds to me from what Robert said that maybe it's already been done because there is going to be kind of a significant monument on that corner and the building will be sort of massed toward that corner. So I think it may be worth the discussion.
And offline, I can send you the preliminary plans that we've received.